so, where to begin? Okay, so, the idea behind this one is the idea of one person. Only one. At least right now. It's this wonderful and grand idea of a person named Queen Carsall. It's this person who is probably one of the greatest people to ever go down in Lasera, if that makes sense. And it's the idea that Our Lady Carsall was an elegant queen and a prosperous queen and something you could look up to. She is meant to be an icon for others. How to begin? Well, it's this idea that there hasn't been very many people who have gone down as some of the greatest, most powerful people who have taken that power and used it for only righteous means. And Queen Carsall is that example. She is, by definition, the queen. She is meant to be everything that we expected, a monarchy to work. And I feel that's exactly what I want her to be. I want her to have this idea and flow that makes her seem something who doesn't waste things, who doesn't depend on things, who only understands what needs to be done, whether that takes lives or not. It's a person who's understanding of a responsibility on their shoulders that they are themselves supposed to hold the empire together. And Queen Carsall is a perfect example because she fits that example. She's meant to understand, even as a child, that her responsibility is only to serve others. And that by placing on this crown, that she would basically become the ruler of everything. And it's this idea that she takes a child, during her first beginning time, so whenever she was an infant, going into a child to, a woman, well, it's this idea that as a child, she was always grown, and she was, underneath the queen, and she basically learned responsibilities and understanding from her mother, which taught her, things that a queen must do. And it's not necessarily that her mother is a bad queen, but it's the idea that she is the best queen. That not her mother, but her herself, Queen Carsall. And it's just the idea that how she got to where she is, that you're explaining it, but this will never be shown. It's just understanding a character more than if they were just given into the world and hope for the best, So, how to explain this? Okay, so, whenever she was younger, she first had the ideas of greed, lust, things like that, and she has, a simple idea of what a queen could be. But as she grows up, she understands the responsibility and the great what do you call it? Not bearing, what am I saying? I guess the responsibility, but what am I saying? It's a synonym. It's it's basically just it's understanding that she had conflicts at her young age, and she understood and grew out of them, and that's kind of what makes her a great, queen. She understands that that as a child she must endure pain, she must, fight and other things like that. She must uphold every duty that is given to her, but she also must fulfill her own duties to make it better or, work or maintained. Things that only a queen could think of at the time of them. It's not going to be tradition every single time. It's not going to be the same repetitive things because that's not a growing empire. A growing empire must face changes, and that's exactly what Queen Carsall does. She understands the changes, and she is the queen who implements her own ideas of what it should be, and I don't really know how to make her seem everything I want her to be, but I really want to try, because this is really what I've been thinking about. I don't know, the ideas of Queen Carsall is such like a forgotten idea. It's this idea that one ruler can rule over and somehow be good. That they won't take it in their own hands. That they won't, do whatever they want with it. That they will use it exactly how it was always meant to be. That one ruler, no matter how powerful, even if it was taken by force, later on, those people would have changed, They would have gone better, and they would have understood that they need to maintain an empire, and the only way to do that is become, one with the people, care for them, you secure them, several different responsibilities. And I guess, I take, this idea from something I heard, something amazing that just made so much sense for everything it really shone for, I guess. It's the idea that no matter what, a queen can will be the last one. They're like the coach on the team, They always be the first one on the field, the last one to leave. They're gonna be, the person who takes all the pain, takes all the grief, and understands exactly the kind of sacrifices. So she's not willing to give out her people and make them die for her cause and for the people's cause. She understands that there must be people like that, and that there will always be people like that. So she must train an army. She must take this idea of killing and raiding and stuff just to stay alive. But she understands it with a sense of humanity, whereas others would, fall and ride upon their own glory. So I guess that's really what it is. It's that part. It's the idea that this is the one true queen. This is exactly who we wanted. This is exactly what it should have been, And I believe that's exactly what I want Carsall to do. I know I keep repeating the same things, but I really want to embed this idea because it really means everything about her character. That she is the true and only queen that could have ever been. And if people want to follow that example, then that's exactly what she is. She is that icon. Okay, so I think, Carsall, I could talk more about her story and who she was, or her responsibilities. I don't like the idea of talking about infancy because it goes into too much story that I haven't planned yet for a whole wide world to understand culture and things that are writing in this world, how people affect each other. I do like the idea of understanding exactly what she kind of feels and how someone could relate with that, which is the idea that even at night she cries over the people who have saved. The people who usually are her knights, the people who are supposed to be the royal guards, if you will. And they're supposed to protect all means of the empire before anyone else can be seen as an army. They're supposed to be, the scouts, the people who, travel upon horses, who shine the glory of the empire, but not in more of a subtle way, that they're not, bragging. They're, out there to help people. That's the other thing. I want the knights of this empire. But the only thing is, I want them to have mistakes. I want them to understand that there are problems. So I want to give them dilemmas as well. Like, I believe that they should have, like, say for example, they're in the middle of battle and there's someone crying out. Well, who should they, go? I mean, there's people that they need to protect. So, whether they should go out and fight or whether they should, help that person. That's kind of conflict. No, that's not a perfect example, but it's just an idea that gives way for dilemmas. It shows something that I kind of want. I like the idea that they are like her most trusted, but yet she has to basically use them. She has to understand the sacrifice, and she understands that there will always be feasting people, people who are hungry, people who are that, and that's exactly the thing, is she would rather give her food to others than to herself, and that's why she's the last to eat, I don't know, I want her to stand so very, very high among anyone else, but I don't want her to be someone who's overdone, someone who's, purposely like trying to seem relatable or purposely trying to see like that. I don't want that in any way. But, like, how would you, enforce that? And I have an idea. I have quite a few ideas of how exactly to go about making it like that. But other than that, I mean, that's exactly, I guess, well, I don't want to go into too many spoilers, so I won't say that, actually. I like the idea that, I don't know. She has, okay, I guess the best way to explain it, and the final point that I'm making about her, is she basically has the power to control fire and water, but yet she chooses both in only specific circumstances. So fire to your enemies, whereas water to her people. But then she could also reverse it, where, fire would be meant to light the way, or, help people cook, or I don't know, something like that. And where water would be, used to flood out people. So it's this idea of balance, but, in both ways. It's not, one way. So that's the last thing I want to talk about her, because I don't want to go into too much, because then I could say something that I don't want to say. So, I guess, well, first off, I do want to address the idea that, I'm not having any video playing. As I said, I've been busy working on this, and some other things, with some other people, so kind of stretched, but yeah, I just don't want to put out all my ideas or, spoil anything or anything like that. So I haven't got any video, and I haven't got much of a script or something to go along. I do write down some things randomly, so I'm trying to find something while I'm talking, where I've written down stuff. What else could I talk about? Let's think. I have these names that I called. Cantonil, Faverio, no, wait, Ferherion, Promotius, and Sotero? Sotero? Yeah, Sotero. Sotero, Cantonil, Faverion, and Promotius. And it's... Okay, so first I want to go into Promotius, which is... I believe I remember that being a city, and that was one of the it was one of the most richest cities, and it was one that helped Queen Carsall, but it also took, any side that offered money, Um, um, I don't know, I don't really have much to talk about that one. There's not a whole lot there. The next one I have, as I said, is Fiverion, which is another city, but that one is more where the ancients, I guess, lived, or, the ancient ways are still presiding. Um, there's, it's more about, where humanity, or where, every race came from. It's basically like the beginning of time, and it's exactly what we failed to do. I guess that's the example of Favarion. Cantonella is a character. I don't want to go into that person. And then Satero is also another character who's one of the knights, who's underneath, Queen Carsall. The other thing I wanted to do with Queen Carsall, I know I said, but, I don't have very much to talk about. This is going to be quite a short one. So, but basically Queen Carsall is also, I guess, her appearance. I want her to basically have luxuries, but to not appear higher than any other citizens or her people. That basically she wouldn't wear her crown. She would only wear her crown, in meetings or so against other empires, because then that shows her power. But then whenever she's with her people, it doesn't show that she's higher than everyone else. It shows that she's level with people. She understands. She, cares for these people. She knows them by name, in fact. So I do like that. I do really like that, in fact. There's a point that I won't talk about Queen Carsall that I want to talk about, but I can't. She's meant to be one of the pure bloodline among, the past, empires and stuff. She didn't take it by force or anything like that. As I said, she did grow up. She understands fighting. She grew up, fighting as a child, and she did serve on the front lines, I guess. So people do understand that she is willing to put herself out of the way, It basically keeps her level with her soldiers, and that they understand that basically they couldn't have done what she'd have done, but maybe there have been people who have done, but even then they respect her as a soldier because they understand that kind of pain and responsibility. So they kind of really trust her. They take her like any other person that they see on the battlefield. They trust their allies. They keep each other close. They laugh. They joke around. They keep humanity alive. The other thing I wanted to think about is the culture should have some idea, since they are underground, it should have something to do with light. How do they get their lights? And there are places that do have normal lighting where it's like the sun's up there, and there are grass, and there is, plenty of trees and stuff. But I think I want to go with that idea that Queen Carsall lives in one of those places, just because it does show their power, and it does show, that they have one of the only places. But then it's also a light for others, so that if they're ever lost, they can come. The other thing that you have to be realistic about is whether you should, take in people, or whether you should keep safety. This is the idea that no matter what, you should always understand that people who are in this town usually are the most trusted people because they've been around, and people who are new could easily be spies or anything like that. And so, yeah, I would say that there's going to be a system. There's going to be a well thought out, at least I want to make a well thought out idea. Because I don't want it, I want it to be immersive. I want you to feel like this could be a real place, you know. Even if the logic doesn't make sense, or, you know, flying suns or whatnot inside caves and they don't suck up, you know, the cave or whatnot. Or, you know, they don't destroy stuff, or they don't give out so much radiation. Um, you know, the stuff like that, I still want them to make it feel like it's believable within the world. You know, if things work this way, then they should work this way. They won't break, you know. There's things that, and that's what I want to do. I want to sit down after I make all these ideas, and I want to really fix it and fine tune it and make sure that there are no plot holes or no things that take you out of the game. I want everything to feel exactly the way it would if you were really there. So, um, what else? Tech, I guess. So, people do own tech, you know, people are still alive who understand this technology and they still make technology. I like that idea. And the idea, um, just because it does really have that realistic view, because if you had machines, then you could use them in exactly the way they were used back then, you know. If they were war machines, you would take them into battle and you would drop off troops and stuff. They would still be in use, or at least modified in the way we govern ourselves in this world. I don't know. Something like that, if that makes any sense. Basically just modify or take into account that these exist and that we're not going to spend money or come up with new designs if we already have these designs. It's more of a human look on that. These aren't just going to be lying around and people aren't going to do anything about them, or they're not going to take inspiration from them. They are going to have inspiration. It's going to be heavily, because if you did grow up in that time, you know, you would see these around. You would be, you know, writing your own ideas of how this could be better, or some people would come out on top and say, here's how we could do it. That's the other thing. I want Queen Carsall to have, like, a council, because, you know, one person can't do it by themselves. They can't look at everything. Sort of like lords, if you will. It'll be her people, it'll be elected people, elected by either her, or the past queen, or something like that. I haven't decided yet, but, yeah, these people will be the people who are on this council, and they will be one of the most trusted people. There should be no sign of disloyalty, and if there is, then it should be taken with heavy precaution. But then there's not really a good way of doing that either. Whenever you really trust them, you kind of understand that what they're doing is in the best interest. So if you elected a leader who was, you know, the war, you know, general or something like that, well, you want them to understand that, basically you want them to basically do the job without you, but you also want them to stay close and understand so that you can take over anytime, like in Queen Carsall's version of view. Basically, she would have elected general, for example. Not going to be called that probably, or, you know, it's not going to be in the right similar way, but it's the idea that, you know, if she had that person would take all the responsibilities of a general. They would act as a general. They would, you know, lead armies, and then they have tactics, you know. But then they would only work if the queen wanted it, or they would work very closely with the queen, saying, you know, telling what's happening, so that any day she wanted to take over, she could, you know. She could easily take it over and know exactly what's going on, you know, what's happening in the world, and, you know, how to deal with it. And she'll also have, you know, other people along the lines, like, people who are farming, you know. I could even have, like, districts, so that it's even more, and then those lords could have, you know, people who are below them, and then they could also have knights of their own. But those knights wouldn't necessarily work for the queen, but they would also have to be working for the queen. They just wouldn't know her, or I mean, I guess they could know each other, but they wouldn't be working tightly together. They wouldn't, care very much. I mean, they would always, if they ever needed to, but they would go more towards their lord, who takes orders from the queen. The idea that, what else? I guess there's going to be like systems for like irrigation stuff. There will be farms, and it will be modified in the way the world works, as I said. Because these people have been doing it for a long time at this point. They haven't seen the outside world for the longest time. The other thing, I know this is not necessarily Lasera, but I have been working on some other idea that I had. So that's the other thing I've been doing. It's basically like this card game where... Actually, no, I won't go into that. I'll go into that some other time as its own separate thing. Just, put it in here for a little reference, or here's what I'm doing. I could post a video about it, and that would also help, because then you could see. What else? I don't know, just so many ideas that keep coming to me, and I want to talk about them. I want to say that, and that's why I've made this, so that I could come back to them and I understand. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really have much else. I'm sorry it's so short, but I really haven't had a lot of time. I've been trying to work and do other things, but it's kind of hard. I had some storyboarding that I've been working on, and some other things, but of course I can't say that. I don't want anything like that. So that's also been a major area where I can't say, so... Yeah, a bunch of stuff I really don't want to say and that I can't say, but yeah. As I'm reading something, just very interesting. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for joining in for this one. Sorry that it's so short, as I said. If you want to do any of the captions or anything like that, feel free. I will check over them and see if it works, and then, or see if they're right, and then, of course, yeah. Alright, have fun. Good night.